Hey y'all, Marcy Martin here with a little Tampax story. One time I went on vacation in the Bahamas with some friends, and of course I got my period. I didn't want anything to stop me from living my best life on my trip, so I was like, why not be brave and try Tampax? Before that, I really just thought tampons were for adults, and I definitely thought they'd be uncomfortable. Guess what, y'all? They really aren't. It might take a few tries, but once it's in right, you shouldn't feel it, which is great. For a better way to period, just add Tampax.
You don't ever see the top story in the news. Today, nothing happened at 3rd and Elm. They lead with some catastrophic story, a shooting, a huge crash where there are bodies scattered everywhere, because I guess it's what we want to see. It's what we've been conditioned to see. But we need to start giving people hope. Well, hey, it's Dr. Phil. Welcome to Fill in the Blanks. So glad you're here today because I am intending to make you think today. Seriously, I'm going to make you think today, and I'm going to do it because I've been thinking. I've got some questions for you today, and I want you to share your answers with me once you answer these questions. And we're going to get to those in just a few minutes. I'm not going to have a guest today because I want to talk to you. And I want to start out by talking about a few things. And you're going to hear me talking about some of these thought-provoking questions from now through certainly the election in November. I'm not going to be talking politics because I don't know anything about politics, but I'm going to be talking about things that have to do with your life and your culture. The culture that you live in, the world you live in every day. If you don't watch Dr. Phil Primetime, please start. You guys probably know I've started a new network called Merit Street Media. And if you're not watching Merit Street Media, I'm going to just do a shameless plug here and tell you I want you to start. If you don't know where to find it, then go to meritstreetmedia.com. First thing you're going to see when the homepage comes up is Channel Finder. Because if you don't know how to find it, it's going to say, okay, put in your zip code. And you just enter your zip code and hit enter. And it's going to list every way you can watch Merit Street Media wherever you live. It might be on DirecTV or Dish or Samsung or a channel there that you can watch if you don't have any of those things. And there's an app that you can download for free called Merit Plus. You can just go to the App Store, Google Play, Android, whatever kind of phone or computer you have, you can just download it. You just click as soon as you do, and it says, here's what's live, or you can click on Dr. Phil Primetime. So it's really easy. And I'm trying to get the word out because it's going great. And people are starting to spread the word because I'm talking about things other people aren't talking about. And you're looking at the homepage right now if you're watching this. If you're not, I'm just describing it. But you can see there it says start watching. You just click on that, ask you to put in your zip code, and there you go. Because I'm talking about what other people on television aren't talking about. I'm still dealing with guests. I'm still answering questions. I'm still trying to give people, real answers to real questions. Now, here's what I want to do to make you start thinking today. Let's talk about some of the headlines. I just went through a lot of the news sites today, and I just pulled some of these things down. I want to talk about headlines because, and I'm not talking about them for the content, just for context. Just for the kind of values about what's happening in our world today, okay? The point I'm making, I'm going to get to real quick, and I'm looking at what's happening around us. Now, let's go through a few of them. First, war. War is all over the place. We have a lot of unrest in this world, and people are saying we are on the verge of World War III. Now, you can say, well, I look around my world, I don't see anybody fighting. Well, we're in a global economy these days. We're in a global world where things that happen in China, in Taiwan, in Israel, in Ukraine, in Russia impact us here because we are in a global economy, a global world where things that happen there impact things that happen here. So we've got war in Israel. We've got war in Ukraine. We have war threatened between China and Taiwan. So that's one thing that jumps out at us when we look around. It's everywhere. In the UK, they're cracking down on free speech on the internet because they're taking down a lot of hate speech. They're taking down a lot of things that they say kids shouldn't be reading. Obviously, the Olympics just ended, and so there was a lot of talk about the Olympics. A lot of that was positive, I was glad to see, but there were a lot of people complaining about the Olympics, that they weren't fair, that only rich countries could afford to have them. So they were complaining about that. Then there were a bunch of political headlines. They were saying Walz, who is Kamala Harris's pick for VP, stolen valor, saying he lied about being in war and that he was not consistent with the 7 values that he should be consistent with for the Army: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. And then there are headlines about the Trump campaign, that Iran has hacked into the Trump campaign. Then it jumped back over to Harris, that Harris was actually part of a coup, that she didn't get this nomination that she's sure to be awarded at the upcoming convention fairly, that she was part of a coup to oust President Biden. That kind of raises the question that I talk about in my new book, We've Got Issues. I talk about the 10 principles for a healthy society, and number 3 is don't reward bad behavior or support conduct that you don't want more of. Don't reward bad behavior or support conduct you don't want. So if she got this unfairly or part of a coup of ousting him, are you rewarding bad behavior? Trump has gotten upset, started calling people names and all again. He kind of laid off that for a while. Headlines in there of him going back, making fun of Walz. I mean, is that bad behavior? Are we rewarding that kind of behavior? Those things really jumped out at me. And then there's one that really, really got my attention. This was on a site that I don't read often. The article was just posted somewhere. And the name of the article was What's Behind the Risk-Averse Approach Toward Love and Family. Now, the article was interesting and it was well written. It comes from a periodical called Spectator. I think it's the Spectator World is what it's called. And it was talking about the fact that young people today, kids, are much less risk takers. A quarter of all 40-year-olds are not married, and that those that are have children that, well, they have less children, even if they are married, that they have less children, and that the children that are growing up today just take less risk. They start driving later, they start dating later, they start having sex later, they start a lot of things later. You may think, well, some of that's good, some of that's bad. It talked about these 40-year-olds. They call them go bag girls, red pill, millennial avoiders, and all. And what caught my eye about that is something that I see in the headlines a lot. And it makes me wonder. I always say we talk about young people as though we have nothing to do with who they are or how they turned out. Now, what do I mean by that? If we see these kids that are spoiled, we see these young people that are behaving a way we don't want them to behave. Well, we write on the slate of who they are. Do we not have a lot to do with who they are, who they turned out to be, how they behave, what they're doing? Of course we do. We shape young people. And I want to talk about the whole generation of young people right now that are behaving so fearfully. Are we scaring them into that? Are we talking about one crisis after another to the point that we have these young people so scared about life that they're becoming pessimistic? Think about some of the headlines that I just talked about earlier. War, economic crisis, border crisis, financial problems. This is the first generation that is predicted to do less well than their parents. Think about that. Generation after generation after generation, there has been this ascendancy economically where every generation has a better standard of living than did their parents. They all had better homes, better cars, better jobs, better medicine, better standard of living than their parents until now. And now we're telling the young people, you're probably not going to be able to afford a home, certainly not one like you grew up in, even when you get to the age that your parents were when they acquired this home. You're not going to be able to drive cars like your parents drive. You're not going to be able to take trips like you went on with your parents on vacation. If you have children, you're not going to be able to give them the life your parents gave you. So we're telling them things are going to go downhill for you. So there are surveys out there where we've asked young people, what are your biggest fears? And when we ask these young people, what are your biggest fears? Well, not surprisingly, they talk about the very kind of things that we see in the headlines today. Hey, it's Dr. Phil here. You know I bought my first gold coin over 25 years ago. I did it to protect my family and our financial future. Now, back then, we were living in uncertain times, and the national debt was growing larger every day. And it is similar today. Higher taxes, government debt, and an unstable economy. It's more important than ever to buy gold and silver. Now, like you, I cherish my faith, my family, and my financial freedom. That's why I recommend you get the Wealth Protection Kit from Goldco, the top-rated precious metals company in the entire country. It shows you how to diversify and protect your retirement savings. Thankfully, with Goldco, you get the peace of mind that thousands of their customers have protected their money with gold and silver. They are A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau and have earned over 6,000 five-star reviews. Now, right now, you could qualify for up to 10% instant match in bonus silver while supplies last. So call Goldco at 855-969-GOLD to learn more. That's 855-969-GOLD.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Their number one fear, 65% of them say, not having enough money to live comfortably. Number two, being stuck in a job they don't enjoy or find fulfillment in. Number three, 54% say not reaching their full potential. That's kind of an existential anxiety. They say, I don't think I'll ever reach my full potential, being able to do everything that I can do. I won't find my passion. I won't find a place to be everything that I can be. Number four, not finding love. 48% of them say that. Number five, never being able to buy their own home. About half of them say, hey, no matter how hard I work, I'm not ever going to be able to find the money to get my own home. So, I looked at what their biggest hopes were. And their biggest hope was owning their own home. Two was full financial freedom and independence where they didn't have to rely on their parents or anyone else. The number one, 72%, their biggest hope was owning a home. And number two, 67 wanted financial freedom and independence. 3, they wanted to excel in their career. They wanted to be able to travel the world. Number 4, and pursue interests and hobbies. Number 5, they wanted the same things that we all wanted. I thought this was a really great article. It was written by Mark McCrindle, and this was 3 years ago, and it's gotten worse since then. But this was written 3 years ago. If you want to read it, it's Gen Z's Top Hopes and Fears by McCrindle at mccrindle.com.au. You can see we've got these young people scared. They're saying, I'm not going to have enough money to do what I want to do. I'm not going to be able to live comfortably. I'm not going to be able to have a job I care about. I'm going to have to sell out and get stuck in something I don't want to do. What are we doing? Why are we scaring these young people to the point that we're robbing them of their hope? We're robbing them of their passion. What a terrible way to grow up. I'm probably older than most of you, but I can remember growing up in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, we would have these nuclear bomb drills where we would go out in the hall and get against a wall and put our head down between our knees, like that was going to help if there was a nuclear bomb. Who are you kidding? I can remember thinking even then that if there was a nuclear blast within 100 miles of our grade school, I thought, has anybody really seen any of the films of what happened in 1945? Did these teachers not look at the newsreels of what happened in Hiroshima or Nagasaki? That going out in the hallway and kneeling down is not going to help. I thought, do they think we're stupid? I even asked that in class one day and got sent to the principal's office. They were scaring us with all of that, but we're talking about it all the time. We talk about the climate crisis here, global warming, all of this. Look, I agree with everything they talk about. I have grandchildren. They're 14, 12 and a half, 3 and 2. I want them to grow up in a great world. I want them to have clear streams and rivers. I want them to have green trees and grass and clear air to breathe. I want everything they want. I totally agree with all of that. I'm just questioning, why do we need to catastrophize and actually lie to them about what's going to happen in 8 years? I've heard people talking about, well, listen, you don't make these changes, your children are going to be dead in 12 years, going to be dead in 10 years, so what difference does it make what it costs? That's not true. There's people been saying that. They're like these people on the corner with the world is going to end tomorrow, and their sign is so beaten and battered and tattered you can barely read it. Obviously, that didn't happen. Obviously, it's not that catastrophic. That doesn't mean we don't need to work on it. We do need to work on it. Fear is not a great motivator. It's pulling together, setting some reasonable goals that we can attain, working on them and rewarding ourselves when we make progress. You don't get people to have hope and take action towards a known outcome by paralyzing them with fear. And that's what we're doing. When you read these headlines, we used to say, if it bleeds, it leads on the news. You don't ever see the top story in the news. Today, nothing happened at 3rd and Elm. Well, they don't lead with that story. They lead with some catastrophic story, a shooting, somebody was killed at the store, or a huge crash where their bodies scattered everywhere. That's what leads, because I guess it's what we want to see. It's what we've been conditioned to see. But we need to start giving people hope. We need to start pulling together. We've got a presidential election coming up right now. Are we going to be fear motivated, or are we going to say, hey, stop trying to scare the pants off of me and tell me what you're going to do. Give me some hope. Give me a plan. Tell me something with verbs in the sentences so I understand you have a plan. I don't care if you vote Democrat or you vote Republican, but vote with some knowledge and hold these people to a standard. Don't give me rhetoric. Give me a plan. Give me something that makes sense. Give me something I can believe in. That's what we need to be holding these people to. And if they don't, we need to fire them and get somebody who will. And if we don't start holding them to that standard, we'll never get a higher level of performance. That's all I'm saying. We need to stop trying to scare people into change. It doesn't work. We don't need to scare people. We need to inspire people. We need to inspire by setting positive examples, setting positive goals. That's what we need to be doing, not trying to scare them to death. So here are some of the questions I have for you. What do you want? Now, that sounds like a simple question. You say, I've been listening to you say all of this just for you to ask me what I want. In part, yes. But try to answer that question for a minute. And I'm going to ask you to do something for me. And I don't want you to just do it on a computer. I want you to get an old-fashioned pen, an old-fashioned pad, and I want you to write down what you want. There's an exercise we can go through here that actually leads you to overcoming some of the existential anxiety and some of the resulting depression that you might have. Ask yourself, what do I want? And you need to start out by being specific. Because you just say, well, I want to be happy. No, that's not good enough. My dog wants to be happy. You got to be more specific than that. What do you want? I have to give you maybe an example here. Look at the top 5 hopes in McCrindle's survey. 72% of the young people said they wanted to own their own home. 67% said they wanted financial freedom and independence. Is that what you want? A like number said they wanted to excel in their career. Is that what you want? Do you want a closer relationship with your children? Do you want to get married? Do you want a closer walk with God? Whatever you want, identify that. And then the next question is, what are you willing to do to get it? What do you want? Now, what are you willing to do to get it? And that question, too, may sound overly simple until you really break it down. There's something that I've done a lot in corporate cultures where I've worked with leadership called goals acquisition training. A big part of goals acquisition training is to identify a measurable outcome. What's their goal? And it has to be something measurable. And then you have to identify steps that you're willing to take to get it. So what is it you want? Now, what are you willing to do? We don't have to leap tall buildings in a single bound. What are you willing to do to get what you want? Are you willing to work 2 hours a day towards that? And what does that work look like? Is it reading, studying, spending more time on the job, spending more time in prayer? Is it spending more time with the people that matter in your life? What are you willing to do? Because if you know what you want and you identify what it takes behaviorally, measurably, to get that, then you're beginning to develop a plan. This gets into what you're willing to require of yourself and what you're willing to accept from yourself. You have to decide, are you willing to accept where you are, or are you willing to require more of yourself? Maybe the world doesn't take you as seriously as you wish they did. Maybe your coworkers don't take you as seriously as you wish they did. Maybe you settle too cheap for yourself. I don't know. I'm asking you. You need to decide. Maybe you need to decide, I won't be made small by what other people think of me. I won't be contained in a small picture frame because that's how other people see me. That's how other people view me. I won't let people put me in a 5x7 frame if I won't fit. I'm going to be an 8.5x11 frame. I'm going to be in a 9x16 frame. I'm going to be on a whole wall mural if that's what it takes for me to be everything I know I can be. Are you willing to be confined by how other people see you? Are you willing to be confined by how you see yourself? Or are you willing to say, nope, I'm going to behave my way out of this confining self-perception or other perception? So it starts with, what do you want? And then what are you willing to do to get it? And then here comes a really important third piece of this. How will you feel when you have it? What do you want? What are you willing to do to get it? And how will you feel when you have it?
Storms are brewing. Crocs Echo Storm, that is. It's their most striking sneaker that is the perfect blend of form and function. From a sink-in soft feel to a seamless slip-on design, the Storm will help you build your streetwear style while supporting you wherever the day takes you. Plus, there are brand new colorways you won't want to miss. Shop Crocs Echo Storm on crocs.com today.
Restore your vehicle's engine to run like new with Valvoline Restore and Protect, now available at Advance Auto Parts. It's the first motor oil ever to remove up to 100% of engine-killing deposits. That's right, 100%. Stop by your local Advance Auto Parts store today and get 5 quarts of Valvoline Restore and Protect Premium Full Synthetic Motor Oil for only $33.99. Up to 100% piston deposit removal when used as directed for 4 or more consecutive oil changes at standard maintenance intervals, based on adapted sequence 3H testing.
Maybe you want to make more money. And maybe what you're willing to do to get it is to spend more time perfecting your skill set and putting in more effort at your job. How will you feel when you have it? Maybe you'll feel more accomplished and confident at what you do. Then I would say what you really want is to feel more competent and confident at what you do. This gets circular. Then I would say, okay, if what you really want is to feel more competent and confident at what you do, what are you willing to do to have that? Now you have to answer that question. And you say, well, okay, I'm willing to start going to school at night to pick up a skill set that I don't currently have. My question then would be, all right, how are you going to feel when you do that? Well, I'm going to feel equal to all of the people that I now feel inferior to. All right, my observation would be what you really want is to feel equal to the people that you're working with. What are you willing to do that? And I would just keep going around and around and around until you finally feel like, okay, Maybe what I want is to be proud of myself. Maybe that's it for you. Maybe it's to break out of your shell. You will get to a point where you get to a real answer for what you want. And trust me, you'll know when you get to the end, when you get to the bottom and say, okay, that embodies what I really want. Now, once you're there, you finally come to grips with what you want. Now, you can do that concerning your job. You can do it concerning your relationship. You can do it concerning your life in general. But when you begin to get a grip on that, you're going to now get a firm handle on what you start expecting from others. You might start looking at the people you work for, the people you admit into your life, the people you vote for on election day, the people you choose to spend time with in a whole different light, because you now know what you want, you know what's important to you, and you know whether or not you're willing to spend your time with someone, doing something, experiencing some experience based on whether or not it gets you closer to the things that are important to you in your life. And I don't think we spend enough time doing that. And this generation now that is so paralyzed with fear needs to do exactly what I'm talking about. Instead of sitting on the sidelines afraid to get in the game, they need to do exactly what I'm talking to you about. Instead of saying, I'm afraid what may or may not happen, I need to focus on what I truly want in my life. And then I need to start doing something about it. You can't be a passenger in your own life. You can't sit back in row 12 on a bus and hope it takes you where you're wanting to go. If you want to go where you want to go, you got to get up in the driver's seat and start going where you want to go. And you have to stay on the move. If you're out in front leading the parade and you stop moving your feet, your butt's going to be back in the tuba section before you realize it. You've got to keep moving. And the harder you find this, to do, the more important it is that you do it. If it's easy, you may have been working on this already. I kind of doubt it. But the harder you find it to do, the further you are from where you need to be. Look, life is managed. It's not cured. Every one of us is in business for ourselves. Every one of us is a CEO of one. You're in business for yourself. I don't care if you work for a massive organization or you're a stay-at-home parent. You are in business for yourself. I don't care if you're working for money or some other kind of currency. How well your life is going is up to you, and I'm just trying to give you some tools to break it down. Ask yourself, if you could change 3 things in your life right now today, if you were king or queen of the forest for the day, and you could change 3 things in your life, what would they be? Have you ever thought about that? Think about it now. If you could change 3 things in your life right now, today, what would you change? And you may think, oh, I can answer this really quick. That's like the genie popping out of the lantern and saying, you have 3 wishes. What are they? Well, people tend to choke when they get asked that question, particularly if one of the wishes can't be, give me 1,000 more wishes. No, there were 3 things you could change in your life. What would they be? Wise folks have pondered that question. You know, a lot of people say, well, I'd eliminate all disease and suffering in the world. Really? Really? We would have a huge overpopulation problem in this world. Where are you going to put all these people? 90+% of the people that have ever lived are now dead. If they were all still here, where would you put them all? How would you feed them all? What would you do with them? You have to really think about this. You could change 3 things in your life. What would they be? And have you ever wondered? Said I was going to ask you a bunch of questions. I'm making good on that. Have you ever wondered how you got to be who you are right now, at this moment in time as you're listening to me talk? How you got to be the person that you are. If your name's Bill, Bob, Karen, or Sue, there's only one of you in the history of the world. Now, somebody might share your name, but there's only one of you. And there will never, ever be another. Think about that. There has only been one of you in the history of the world, and there will never be another. How did you get to be who you are? I can actually help you answer that question if you are interested. Because you see, life doesn't happen just without some consistencies and patterns. I wrote a book a long time ago called Self Matters. I think it's one of the most important things I've ever done. And in that book, I talk about what I call 10-7-5. I think during our life, certainly by the time we get to be adults, that we have experienced 10 defining moments, made 7 critical choices, and encountered 5 pivotal people in our lives. 10-7-5, 10 defining moments. A defining moment is a moment that occurs in your life where you are one way before that moment occurs, and then you are changed in a lasting way after that moment occurs. You're one way before the moment, and then you are altered in an enduring way after that moment happens. Something occurs that changes you in a lasting, enduring way. And we generally experience 10 of these defining moments at some point in our life. It might be trauma, it might be victory, it might be some revelation, it might be an experience, but it changed you in a lasting way. And when you start writing these down, I promise you, you'll have more than 10. And you will do yourself a favor if you edit it down until you get, well, this one doesn't really, it's not as important as this one, so I'm going to cross it off. I'm going to discipline myself down to 10. And then you've got to identify 7 critical choices. Now, moments can just happen. They aren't things you necessarily were an active agent in. You may have just been there when it occurred, but 7 critical choices are things that you were the mover in. You were the agent in. You made the choice. Consciously, actively made the choice. Maybe you graduated high school and you decided to get a job and buy a new car and start making the payments on it with the job you had. Instant gratification. Maybe you decided, no, I'm going to drive a clunker or keep taking the bus and go to school, wait 4 or 5 years before I buy a nice car or live in a nice place. Delayed gratification. It's just different choices. I'm not saying one's better than the other. Sometimes it's better to wait. Sometimes people strike off on an immediate desire and it turns out to be a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Who knows? Maybe that was one of your critical choices. Maybe you chose to get married. Maybe you chose not to get married. But what are the 7 critical choices you made? And in the 5 pivotal people, you'll cheat yourself if you just put your parents on there. Because, of course, they're pretty pivotal in your life. And I'll confess, when I did this, I did put my father on there. He filled 2 roles. He was a very positive, pivotal person and a very negative, pivotal person. Because he was a terrible alcoholic, often violent. He was also the hardest worker I've ever seen in my life. He was a great role model in that regard and a terrible role model in the other. So it was a twofer. So I figured he earned the right to be on the list since he filled 2 roles. So I violated my own rule and let him have one of the spots. But that oftentimes, when you step back and look at it, will tell you how you got to be who you are. 10 defining moments, 7 critical choices, 5 pivotal people. And then you answer that question, what are 3 things I would change in my life? And what do I want? Now you're starting to get to know yourself. Now you're starting to get to know yourself. And why did I start this conversation with headlines? Because we have to make a choice about what we care about and what standard we hold those that we're going to elect into offices that can impact our lives. We're going to be talking about this some more. I promise you we are. I hope you find this interesting, and if you do what I'm asking you to do, I promise you, you will. And let me remind you as I finish up here, these are the kind of things we're looking at and talking about on my new network, Merit Street Media. You can find it at meritstreetmedia.com. You can download the app Merit Plus in the App Store or Google Play Store. And it's free, and I want you to join us because we are talking about things that matter to people who care, and I'll bet you're one of those people. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/insights. That's oracle.com/insights. Oracle.com/insights.